Mastodon instance liabilities, and what we didn't know about the LastPass hack. Until now. This is MacVoices. This week's MacVoices is supported by Kolide. Kolide is an endpoint solution that uses the most powerful untapped resource in IT, end users. Learn more at kolide.com/MacVoices. Today's edition of MacVoices is supported by RocketMoney. Take full control of your subscriptions with RocketMoney at rocketmoney.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this is the MacVoices Live Holiday Party number 2. It's Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, whatever time that is, wherever you are. We are in the YouTube chat room at youtube.com/MacVoicesTV, along with a bunch of our other friends. We would love to have you join us to come in and share a little holiday cheer and a little tech information and conversation. Tonight, as we record this, it's the 27th of December. So as you might guess, there's not a lot of Apple news, but we do have a couple things we definitely wanted to talk about. And I also posted another question for our panel to ask them to contemplate a little bit. So we will get to that just a little bit later. First, let's find out who's here, and then we will move on. It seems like this is just his regular position up in the top left of my screen, Mr. David Ginsburg. David, good to see you.
Good to see you, Chuck. Hope you had a great holiday and Merry Christmas, and glad to be here again this week. I have my Christmas present behind me here. Got a nice grid iPhone 4S. I think this thing is pretty phenomenal. Nice little breakdown, and a good thing to hang up on the wall. So Santa was good to me, but glad to be here. It's going to be a good show.
Good. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's see. I'm just going to go clockwise and introduce Eric Bolden. Eric, it's good to see you.
Yes.
Have things warmed up a little bit for you?
Oh, much improved. What? Not quite above freezing, but pretty darn close. Enough so it's safe to drive. Roads are clear. All the birds are happy. Yeah, it's good. And you want the birds happy.
Yeah, definitely. Good to have you. I'm glad you made it. Next up, sporting a very Darth Vader-like attire is Mr. Webb Bixby. Webb, good to have you.
Chuck, good to be here. Hope, like David said, hope you had a good holiday. Mine was fabulous. It's very quiet, very wonderful. So,
should we? People have been wishing you congratulations in the chat room. Should we make it public as to why?
Oh, sure. It actually happened a week before Christmas. The 18th was my birthday, and it was also the day that my new grandson was born. Hudson is his name. So really happy to have him in my life too. So
yeah, congratulations. That's terrific. That's terrific.
Thank you.
Not like you're going to spoil him or anything.
Oh, yes, I will.
Yeah.
This is number 3. I got 2 other grandsons too, so just ask them.
Oh, okay. No. Just coming in fashionably late, Mr. Jim Rock has arrived. Gesundheit. That's quite the entrance. How you doing, Jim?
How do you turn these things on?
Okay. Apparently, Jim didn't hear my my introduction.
No, he didn't. He's getting his headphones going here.
Oh,
You can't hear me?
Oh, I can hear you.
yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I can hear it, but it's coming out of the speaker, and I'm using the. I imagine I sound crummy.
No, you sound good.
Really?
Yeah.
That's bad.
It's coming. It's using my Mac. MacBook microphone, which is 3 feet that way.
Doesn't
Really?
sound bad at all.
Shall I just leave it this way? Forget the headphones?
Yeah.
All right. I don't know why they're not working.
Yeah. Very. That's a little surprising. I guess your room doesn't have a lot of echo to it because it does not sound bad at all.
Because I've done this before, and you're like, Jim, I don't think you've got the right mic.
Yeah, well, we've done that before. You're right. You're right. Yeah. Brian in the chat room says sounds good here. So there you go.
All right.
Yeah. So as I said at the outset, there were just a couple things that I wanted to bring up. And the first two are really sort of follow-ups to some conversations we've had in previous shows. The first one, and I'm not even sure who brought this up. We've been talking a lot about Mastodon as a Twitter alternative. And there have been a number of articles going around, and I didn't, honestly, I never even thought about this. It may have been Jeff that suggested, that you could spin up your own Mastodon instance or Mastodon server. Yeah. And apparently that opens up a whole lot of responsibility issues.
Yes, it does.
And I found a Twitter thread. I'm going to throw it in the chat rooms that it might be worth you all checking out. Shoot. Okay, I may not be able to throw it in the chat rooms. I will have it in the show notes. I'm sorry about that, folks. But I can definitely throw it in our private chat room. As soon as I can find our private chat room. There we go.
I was afraid of that.
Yeah. That way it'll make it into the show notes. But there are DMCA issues. There are all kind of potential liability issues here. Not to mention the very obvious risks associated with running any kind of server. So, it might be a fun thing to play with, but if you're going to use it at all in any open fashion, you may want to do a little bit of research before that, because I don't want to see anybody might get in any kind of trouble.
You might
Jim,
be better. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I'm going to try to see if I can. Jim just gave us another link. I'm going to try to paste that, but I'm not sure that I have permission to paste in my own chat room. Oh, I do. Cool. There we go.
Okay. Good.
So
as I was saying,
it's the same as the one you pasted. I just without the Google intermediary.
Okay. Great. Thank you. David?
I was going to say, tread lightly to even thinking about getting a server. Not only is it something with copyright, it's also there's a cost involved. You're going to have to fire up a server, and they tend to charge for that. And I know a number of people have spun up their own servers. Notably Leo Laporte did with Social, and he continues to say that he pays for it and pays per user who joins, so he's being very limited to who he allows to join. And when you ask for an invitation, he'll let you in. And I think that's pretty typical of anybody that has a server like that that sets up. So it's definitely something that you want to be aware of when it comes to that. But it's definitely been interesting. I'm starting to dabble into it a little bit more. There's a good tutorial. Our friend Don McAllister just did a video not too long ago on ScreenCastsOnline. You might want to check that out too. I just finished listening to that a while ago, and he did a pretty good job of just giving you guys the basics of understanding what Mastodon is. Because I think that's the biggest problem with people. They just get very overwhelmed and like, wow, this is way too confusing for me. Do we even want to deal with this? And but once you get into it and start understanding it, and the big thing is you're on one server, I'm on another server, and so on and so forth. I just figured out today that you can go to that person who is on that other server, copy the link of that person's server, and put it in your search, and you can still follow them, under the server you're on. So I think it's got some good value. I think it's just going to take a little bit of time and a little bit of a learning curve to understand how it goes. But I think I'm really liking it. And I'm liking that the community's not crazy wild like it is on Twitter. So
yeah, and I hate to be the downer here, but I do feel like it's something that, since we do have a tech-oriented audience, that you just need to be aware that if it seems like a good idea, by all means, go ahead and play with it. But just before you let anybody join your Mastodon server, be aware of some of the risks associated with it, and not just the hacking risks, but the legal risks. Because if somebody should get on your Mastodon server and then start posting less than desirable stuff, let's just say, you don't want to be the one to be legally liable for it.
You got to be the person that's overseeing the server, and you're managing the content versus Twitter or somebody else in their case.
Well,
Yeah.
you can set up a server and not let anyone else be on it.
Yeah.
I have a friend that has done that, and I've thought about doing it myself. I'm kind of, the thing that concerns me right now about Mastodon is the choice of what instance to join and what the sustainability model is there. It seems to me like these instances are going to come and go. I mean, they're not monetized. They've got to be a pain in the, rear to run. And I'm concerned that I would get on an instance. Of course, a lot of them don't even let you on right now. But and then what happens? Who is running that? I don't even know. What are their policies going to be as far as moderation, or even deciding whether they're going to let you continue to use their server or whether they're still going to be around? And if I'm going to go to the trouble of establishing myself, that seems like a real shaky foundation. So that's what really concerns me. I kind of wish, I'm not sure if this really makes sense or not, but people keep saying it's like email, and I kind of see that, where you specify, so and so at so and so server, and so I'm thinking, gosh, I think I would love it if Fastmail, for example, would set up an instance and charge me $5 a month or whatever. I'd rather send that to them than Elon. And then I feel pretty good that Fastmail has got a long track record. Of course, they may be looking at this and saying, "Hey, we don't want any part of a social media server." But that's the
Well. But Jim, you're right. We're right back because I'm the one that has said for a long time that I wish, whether it's Twitter or someone, and micro.blog does charge a nominal fee per month to be on theirs. And I personally don't have a problem with that. But there are a lot of folks that do. They feel like social media should be open to everyone. There should not be any dollar barrier to it from a freedom of speech standpoint. And I understand why they feel that way, but just everything you're saying about, you wish somebody reputable, not that Mastodon is filled with non-reputable people. That's not what I'm saying, but somebody that maybe has central control could spin up something and then, call it a premium Mastodon server. I don't know, but
right. Well, what I'm saying is it would not preclude free Mastodon instances.
There you go.
I assume that's not going away. I'm just saying, just like, I can start up my own email server, and I used to run an email server myself for a long time, 15, 18 years, something like that. Didn't pay anybody. Server ran, on my domain name. And in fact, it ran on a server in my house. And then eventually I decided, you know what? I'd really rather pay $5 a month to Fastmail and offload all those headaches. So I'm not suggesting that Mastodon should not be free, but just that I personally would like to pay for an instance because, there's got to be some model, or, things going to go away, or it's going to do things that are weird. If you're not paying, then you're the customer, right? So, yeah. And this thing about that you posted, I've seen that about the DCMA thing. I've seen that on and off for the last 3 or 4 years, and I keep thinking I need to do that because I run a discourse forum. So, I don't, it's specifically about Panorama, and, we haven't had people post, copyrighted movies or anything, but I suppose, maybe, and I remember having a conversation with Rick Ford at Macintouch, and he runs a forum, And I was like, "Hey, Rick, have you seen this?" And he hadn't. And I was like, "I wonder if we." And he's like, "Gosh, do we need to do this?" I haven't heard of anybody, running into a problem with that. But theoretically, even if you run a forum, maybe you need to do that.
Today's Mac Voices is supported by RocketMoney. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions at rocketmoney.com/MacVoices. New year, new goals. Or maybe they're the same goals as last year. Manage your budget better and save money. If that sounds like something you plan to do, you need RocketMoney. RocketMoney, formerly known as Truebill, is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills, all in one place. We all have subscriptions that we've forgotten about. That app that you no longer use. The streaming service you signed up for to watch that one show, but forgot to cancel the subscription when the show got canceled. RocketMoney will quickly and easily identify your subscriptions for you so you can stop paying for the ones you don't want. That's cash back in your pocket. Stop throwing your money away. Cancel unwanted subscriptions and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/MacVoices. That's rocketmoney.com/MacVoices. rocketmoney.com/MacVoices. Thanks to RocketMoney for their support of Mac Voices. This week's Mac Voices is brought to you by Kolide. Kolide is a fleet visibility solution for Mac, Windows, and Linux that can help you securely scale your business. The challenge with endpoint security has always been that it's difficult to scale. And when remote work took over, the challenge got exponentially harder. With remote work continuing to be widespread, the challenge remains. You need visibility into your fleet of devices in order to meet security goals and reduce service desk tickets. But how do you get that visibility when different parts of your company run on Mac, Windows, and Linux? You get Kolide. Kolide is an endpoint security solution that gives IT teams a single dashboard for all devices, regardless of their operating system. Kolide gives you real-time access to your fleet's data and can do things that traditional MDMs can't. And instead of installing intrusive agents or locking down devices, Kolide takes a user-focused approach that communicates security recommendations to your employees directly on Slack. You can answer every question you have about your fleet without intruding on your workforce. Visit kolide.com/MacVoices to find out how. If you follow that link, they'll hook you up with a goodie bag just for activating a free trial. That's Kolide, KOLIDE.com/MacVoices. Kolide.com/MacVoices. Thanks to Kolide for supporting this week's Mac Voices. Yeah, there's so many of these things that, and we all love to play with it and get it up there. And, from the days of bulletin boards on, it was always fun to be the one in control of it. But, unfortunately, it's become more sophisticated. Business has moved in, and with that, a lot of legal issues. Eric, you had some something to say about moving between Mastodon servers.
Yeah, the Mastodon servers give you the ability to migrate from one server to the other. So if you join an instance and then discover that it either doesn't let you see content you want to see, or it is having difficulties expanding fast enough for the number of users, and there's a better fit somewhere else, or maybe there's another server that has a user base that's themed closer to technology or art or whatever it is that you're looking for. You can, and there are instructions in the Mastodon help notes on how to say, yep, I want to move from this server to that server, or to be able to basically have a kind of referral. So when people visit you on the one server, it gets redirected to the new one. Mm-hmm. You have to be careful because you can't move like back and forth throughout the week. You have to migrate, and then there's a time frame you have to wait before you could do it again. But it means that you're not stuck on one particular instance with no way to go anywhere else.
But my understanding is that when you do that, all your content does not move. it stays with the old server, and that's kind of baked into the design of it because each instance does its moderation. So there's really no way to import, transfer content from one server to another. You could be like, yeah, here's my 10,000 posts that I did for the last year, and then what? This other server is supposed to go through and moderate that as you import it. So it's just not allowed.
But for most of the people that seem to be migrating, it's because they couldn't figure out which server to pick when they started and just picked a random one. And then, just realizing that you can switch. So once you're there and you see who you're following and what server it's on, or maybe a server was closed when you first started and now it's open, or,
Right. But I'm more thinking that, maybe this will need to be done 3 years from now or 5 years from now, or, whatever. Especially since, 3 years from now or 5 years from now, it makes it more likely that policies of instances will change, or, somebody will just be like, hey, I don't feel like running a Mastodon server anymore. In fact, if a server went away completely, I assume there'd be no redirects from it.
So, Jim, that brings up an interesting question, and frankly, I can see the lack of transfer of content as from one perspective, it's a bug; from another perspective, it's a feature. But I have to wonder how many social media accounts really does the content over, let's just say 6 months, let's say a year. Does anybody really care about what, with no offense to anybody here, what I posted, what Jim posted, what David posted, Webb, Eric, Jeff Gamet, anybody on the panel? Is anybody really going back and looking at that stuff? I mean, I'm with you completely, that it's not a great place to build, it's not a great way to build a body of content. But I sometimes wonder if we all get a little too hung up on the body of content, and is it really relevant if you're not president of the United States or president of Ukraine, whatever?
Well, but who knows who's going to be president of the United States, or, what's going to be important in the future. I think that's one of the concerns that I see, at least, and I've seen other people express about, say if Twitter was to actually go away, how much history would be lost, and, things that are back there, So is it the end of the world? But I'm just saying it's, to go in now and say, well, I'm going to join Mastodon and maybe I'll be active on there for, X years. And then all of a sudden, out of my control, all my content's gone. And maybe I'll care and maybe I won't. But to start, from the beginning saying, well, I'm going to not care.
Webb, you're sitting up there kind of quiet, just looking like you're...
I have a Mastodon account. It's at home.social is the server that I'm connected to. We've been on the show now on the air for 22 minutes. I've spent more time on this show than I have on Mastodon. I kind of set it up and played around and have ignored it for the last 4 or 6 weeks. So just...
Have you spent any time on any other social networks?
Facebook, because that's the best way to stay connected with the rest of my family, and some of people here too, and also Twitter. But I'm not a big, I don't post a lot. I've said that from the very beginning. I'm more of a lurker. I'm more observed than get into it. So I was looking at my Mastodon. I'm following 4 people and I got 6 followers, and I'm not sure who those 6 are. So anyway, it's just So almost everybody on this show.
Not me.
And a guy who used to work for me. So
I don't know. The reason I brought it up was for the legal liability concerns. but we've veered off into some other areas that are absolutely interesting, and there are things to think about depending on what the purpose of your of your Mastodon presence would be. If you're going to start having your business on Mastodon, or that's one of the social media presences, well, then maybe this is kind of a big deal, that you want to be building up that body of information that someone can go back and research. Frankly, I'm not even sure. I guess it's just a matter. I hadn't even thought about this, but it's just a matter of clicking on somebody's ID to go back and see all of their past posts. Is that a correct statement? I haven't even played with it that much.
Yeah,
I believe you can on that instance, but what I'm saying is that would only show you that instance. So if they moved at some point, you wouldn't see what was on any instance they've been on before. Just like, somebody could have multiple Twitter accounts, and if you go look at one of them, you won't see the other ones.
Right. Yeah.
But presumably Twitter is not going to, selectively shut your account down. Well, that was something that was probably safe to say 3 months ago. Maybe now I shouldn't, make that statement.
Well, you can download your full Twitter account as well.
I did that. Yeah. But that doesn't help Chuck see it.
True. Although I've seen people attempt
looking at that, it's not clear to me how usable that archive would be if Twitter itself didn't exist. I mean, there'd be a bunch of information there, but I think it would be very hard to use if Twitter itself wasn't up.
Well, isn't that probably true though? Because you can do the same thing with your Facebook account, I believe. And I haven't done it because I don't feel like there's anything that's really that important for me to archive or know that I posted X number of years ago.
I don't know. I'm not on Facebook.
Yeah.
But I mean, for example, email, you theoretically pretty reasonably could make an archive of your email, and it would probably still make sense, even if the rest of the internet didn't exist.
Right. So, the other story that I wanted to bring up, and we don't want to beat anybody when they're down, but on the other hand, this is David brought us this link, but you can find a bunch of stories out there right now about this. This is the LastPass's announcement that apparently during the data breach earlier this year, that in fact some users' vaults were included in the hack. Now, my understanding is that it doesn't mean that those vaults were cracked open. It just meant that they were obtained. And so in theory, somebody could take your vault and start trying to brute force their way in a lot easier than if it were behind LastPass's walls, which apparently were also improperly guarded. So this is kind of a warning. And the thing that disturbed me the most about it was LastPass has been putting out this information now for several weeks, and they decided, a day or so before the Christmas holiday weekend, that's when they would announce this, almost like they were hoping nobody would pay attention. That's silly them.
Not this day and age.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how does everybody feel about this? Because it really does. It looks like LastPass was not doing, from what the reports are saying, and that's a big if. But it looks like they really were not doing what they should have been doing to protect some of the most valuable information that we all have.
I can just give you a little side story. In my organization, I don't know if any of you have any kind of a corporate password management account or not, but we are going through that, and it really comes down to LastPassword and 1Password is what we're thinking about. I've been a 1Password user for since this version 2, and now they're on what 10 or 12 or something like that. Anyway, I've been using it a long time. I like it. But, the thing about password managers is that you have to really commit to it to get the most out of it. You can't be kind of passive about it. So every password that I have is in 1Password. Every unique password, I might add. But it's this whole data breach thing is getting to a real point where we're rethinking the whole issue of, do we want to have a password manager? Granted, there are things that are going on right now about passkeys as the buzzword that I'm hearing right now, and some other type of unique two-factor authentication, some things that we use corporately ourselves. But there's still going to be some accounts that are still going to use the traditional username password of some kind. There could be a two-factor with it, but it's still going to be something out there. And I don't think that there's a widespread adoption of some new authentication tool. So anyway, that's what we're thinking about. When the LastPass thing came up, it does give us pause to, granted they weren't able to get past the encryption that the end users have. Supposedly they haven't gotten past that, but it's an issue. It's one that we're talking about corporately. So
yeah, and LastPass really made a big push a couple of years ago to be the corporate password manager of choice. Because I know a couple companies we dealt with were actually had contracted with LastPass to distribute licenses. Which, hey, it wasn't a bad idea by any means. To encourage your customers and clients to use a password manager. Unfortunately, now LastPass has more than a little egg on its face.
It's a PR nightmare, really. I mean, they're going to have a heck of a time recovering from this. I mean, they know it's a lot of damage control, I'm sure, in their business right now.
David, I guess I'm not as bothered by the fact that they got hacked. It just seems like that can be something that can happen to anyone.
Yeah,
it's the way they've handled the communication to their customers.
Right.
That, I mean, at least in theory, the hackers who obtained those vaults have had months to try to break into them. And if that had been my vault, well, I know I would have been in there changing passwords real quick if I had known that I was in danger. But I think up to this point, everybody has felt like, LastPass got hacked, but my vault is secure. My vault is, was never touched. Now, and you can't help but wonder what else has not been said yet.
Yeah, that's one of the things I guess that worries me more than anything else. Is they came out with one announcement and then they came out with more detail a little bit later. And, there's some commentary now that, if you read through their press release and it talks about if you followed all of the rules and best practices, you're probably mostly okay. But it's unclear. There seem to be a lot of users that weren't told at one point to reset their password to get the better encryption level, and that people who've had accounts for a really long time might have very low levels of encryption, and they probably should have been told, go in and change all your passwords because there really wasn't any protection much on your vault. It would be really easy to break into. There seemed to be a little bit more concern for corporate users over individual users, which also kind of bothers me. It's just, I think there could be a lot more communication that would make me feel better. As you said, anyone could have a break-in, but it's the communication afterwards that, to me, makes a huge difference.
Our discussion of the LastPass hack continues in the next edition of MacVoices, and then our panel picks some of their most important hardware. That's next time on MacVoices. We will see you then. As always, I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.